Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. Dreams start when you're awake, dancing on a pin with a little baby in your arms as you feel the pulsating rhythms of blues-based music. People talk about blues scales, but it's more about a feel, a time and a place when you find that pocket and lock the groove. My guest today has been locking the groove for the last 50 years. He came of age in New York, where he played bass for the Gamblers, who were one of the first groups to play electronic instrumental music. He monkeyed around for a bit and then headed west, where Taj Mahal and Jesse Ed Davis were holding court, putting their own accent on the indigenous rhythms of our country. My guest fell in with the eccentric and generous freeform drummer Paul Lagos. The two of them provided the rhythmic propulsion for so many blues-based albums: Fiddler on the Rock with Sugarcane Harris, Baby Batter with Harvey Mandel, Mudlarkin with Leo Kottke, Breaking Bread with John Mayall, and the iconic band Canned Heat, which is coming to the Rialto Theater March 4th. He caught lightning in a bottle, feeding on the non-traditional blues scales. Gone were the 1, 4, and 5, and in its place was a menagerie of fusion. My guest continued to anchor many bands in both a live and studio setting. People like my guest and Paul Lagos didn't consider charts jazz. For them, jazz was the idea of improvising on a theme. Many of my dreams have come to fruition on this journey. At 38 years old, I have interviewed all the heaviest bass players: Chuck Rainey, Wilton Felder, Dave Holland, Leland Sklar, Paul Jackson, Stanley Clarke, and George Porter. Today, another dream comes true. Larry Taylor, an honor to welcome you to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Is that you live?
How you doing, man? Yeah, that's it, man.
Oh, without doubt, because I couldn't hear that as good as I'm hearing your voice now.
Well, I mean, I did you catch any of it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you got a couple of things wrong at the beginning, but that's okay.
Well, okay, so let's work it out. Tell me because this is all just.
I wasn't in New York with the Gamblers. That was in Southern California's number one.
Okay.
That was done here in Southern California. The label was World Pacific Records, which was a jazz label here in Los Angeles. I don't know if you know that.
Of course.
Dick Bach was the owner of the company, and it was done here as a trial to see if they could get from jazz into some of the music. It was actually produced by Nick Vinay, and Jimmy Haskell was the A&R man.
It is so great to talk to you, Larry. Your bass playing has, it started back when my younger daughter was 2 years old, and I began dancing her to this one piece of music, and I said, this guy's got the deepest groove in the world. And I wanted to ask you something. I read last night that you're very much into bringing the upright bass into the blues setting today, in today's live setting. And I wanted you to talk about why you do that and the significance of the upright bass in music in general.
Well, I mean, in blues, it's one of the important elements of the older style blues music that was done in the 50s. And that was just something I really liked, the music, when I listened to that, and so that's why I got into playing it. And then, of course, I played it on all kinds of other people's records, and a lot of, earlier blues styles, like, say, with Kim Wilson, for instance, and then the many other, local artists around here that play that style. And also for swing, and it sort of has a jazz side to it, too. And I'm a real big jazz fan, so that's one of the reasons I got into the upright bass.
Can you talk specifically about, I've interviewed a ton of upright bass players. A lot of them were playing with Dizzy Gillespie in the 50s. But, can you talk about, from the blues point of view, from the blues perspective, who was playing upright bass? Like, can you talk about the upright bass in the blues setting?
Well, yeah, that's what I was just saying. In the blues setting, it originally was like a 50s style of blues music that was being played at the time.
Right.
And a lot of swing and a lot of like on the border of jazz and blues.
Right,
so
right.
A lot of it was kind of jazz rooted, but Then you had, like, say, Willie Dixon, for instance, that played on the chess records, all the rock and roll and a lot of blues. And it sort of has its own little small world because there's not that many people that are into it today as far as that sound. Although I introduced it about in the 70s with Hollywood Fats, and ever since then has been all these people picking up on. In fact, that's the instrument that sounds best in certain stylistic forms. So that's kind of like what that's about.
Okay, but you are.
As far as
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, as far as where it's gone, it's always going to be there. It's just it's sort of an eclectic thing.
Well, I think it's eclectic, but I actually think you're probably a genius. I've interviewed over 500 cats. Most of the music I listen to is from the late 60s and early 70s. I think you're nailing this thing. So we just dissected the sound of the upright bass. I think Richard Evans from Chess Records, rest in peace, also fell into that category, playing the upright bass. But I wanted you to talk about how the sound changed, when it changed, and please extrapolate on when you first noticed this change of the blues and jazz going more towards I hate the word, I guess, rock or fusion.
Yeah, well, that was in the early '60s. When it started to get, like, say for instance, Stax Records with with backing, all that R&B-ish type stuff, and say the Booker T, the instrumentals, how they use electric bass, and that was like the beginning, sort of, but that was a little later '60s. It wasn't late '60s; it was like early '60s. But the real, I don't know if you know this, but the really first electric bass rock and roll record was an Elvis record.
Really? Really?
Yeah, it's called Jailhouse Rock. You know the song Jailhouse Rock?
Oh yeah, big time.
Well, before that he was using an upright bass on his early records, and then of course they used electric. But the first real rock and roll beat was an electric bass playing against an eighth note rock and roll beat with a quarter note bass line.
Oh, I love this.
So if you listen closely to that record, you'll hear, when it goes into the 4 chord, you'll hear, and then you hear the bass playing dong dong, a walking bass against it. So that was really the first rock and roll record with an electric bass playing a rock and roll beat, but still playing a straight ahead quarter note boogie woogie line.
Do we know who was playing on that album?
I'm not sure the bass player on that. I think that was Bill Black, actually.
Black?
He played electric. No, maybe not on that record, but it's possible that he did play on that record. But yeah, but that was the change right there. I don't know if you realize.
Well, no, I mean, I was not even I was an afterthought. I wasn't even conceived at that. This is so phenomenal to talk to you. Okay, so here's my trivia question for you. Do you know who the first electric bass player to be recorded in a jazz context was?
Yeah, Monk Montgomery.
In what record?
Oh, there's a bunch of early, I think, late 50s or mid 50s, or maybe it's like the late 50s to early 60s. The Montgomery brothers.
Actually, let me tell you something. 1953 Monk Montgomery Art Farmer record.
Oh yeah, that's an early Monk Montgomery. But I was thinking about the Montgomery brothers. But yeah, he did play bass early on, right? That's right. I forgot.
The master sounds. Yeah, no, this is so phenomenal because, although I do like when the electric bass, I like your electric bass playing quite a bit when it was still somewhat of a vogue instrument. I wanted to read you. This is coming from an old pal of yours, Randy Resnick, who I interviewed a couple years ago, and I'm just going to read you this quote. He said, he's talking about Paul Lagos, introduced me to Don Sugarcane and Larry Taylor, and we did a couple of gigs at the Troubadour. They were pretty well received, and then Larry said, man, this ain't it. This is jazz. Jasss. Okay? He wanted to do something else, and he left. Now you nailed it, Larry. Okay, because when the reason I focus in on that time period in music is because it was burning music. No labels, just it was burning. And then you start to talk about jazz. Now you break that down for the audience because this is going to go live on worldwide in a couple of weeks. I want you to break down what you meant by that, because when he said that, I said I need to find LT.
Yeah, that's a kind of a difficult question. I'm not really sure what I was thinking back then. But
you were really on top
wait a
of
minute.
it.
What did I say? What did I say? What did you say before? Because I couldn't really hear you.
Okay, so
I'm having a hard time hearing you on some of this.
Well, okay, so we'll adjust my sound. I'll read it again. It says Paul Lagos introduced me to Don Sugarcane Harris and Larry Taylor, and this is from Randy Resnick. And he said, and we did a couple of gigs at the Troubadour. They were pretty well received, and then Larry said, "Man, this ain't it. This is jazz."
I don't know what I meant.
No, but you took the Z's off of jazz and made it jazz.
Oh yeah, I just used the S's.
Tell me what you were feeling about specifically. You talked about you being a fan of the blues fusing with jazz in the 50s, but why did you make it? Because the music to me, when I hear it, was turning more towards pacification as opposed to burning. That's just me as a listener. I'm not a musician. So tell me what...
Wait. It was turning more towards what?
When you say jazz with two S's, right? Yeah. That tells me that the music was more becoming about pacification, listening as pacification, as opposed to having a visceral experience. It was becoming more Velveeta, more fusiony, not the burning blues quality that you...
Oh, I see. I got.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true. But if you really want to know what I meant by that word, with the S's, that was just a slang.
Okay.
Because me and Paul used to always say to each other, "That's jazz."
I love it.
So that's where that came from. I remember instead of jazz, jazz. See, so we put the S's on it. So that's all that was. It wasn't really about anything to do with the music, to be honest.
Well, what did you mean when Lagos was I've interviewed everybody from Jim Keltner to, I don't know, Larry Taylor. I mean, Lagos was a very opinionated cat. So you guys had some meaning behind that. What did that mean? I mean, when you said that, did you mean it wasn't authentic? It wasn't. What did you mean?
Well, yeah, it sort of had the feeling of it not being the mainstream music that was being played at the time, and so you would put that in a sort of an own category and just call it jazz. It kind of sounds funny, but that's kind of like it wasn't really something that was really thought about. It just was a sort of a slang. And then I think we just thought at the time we were playing, how we were playing, had elements of that music in it, but other kinds of music in it too. You see?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's more like kind of, if I really think about it, that's sort of what we were saying. But if I think about it, yeah, I mean that's pretty right on it, I think.
Well, because I mean, this is a long transcription, and I actually put it into my monologue intro, but he said people like Larry and Paul didn't consider charts jazz, and this is a huge part of my show as well, as the street scholar mentality. Is for them, jazz was the idea of improvising on a theme. So he said Carlos Santana played rock, but he also played jazz. There is a sound of jazz, but then you're getting into what kind of jazz is it? Is it romance? Is it bebop? In my mind, jazz is what I first started listening to, which was Coltrane and Sun Ra. That's Randy Resnick. But I want you to talk about that idea of improvising on a theme, because nowadays, Larry, you probably run into younger cats. I mean, people are learning music within academia. And I think that there's that will only stymie the languages of music. But I'd like to get your take on jazz as playing off a theme as opposed to reading charts?
Oh yeah, well, jazz off a theme is just you hear you know the tune, or you know some changes, and you kind of improvise around it. You play on the spot what you hear according to what everybody else is playing. And the charts, you're reading. I mean, even if it's big band or even if it's jazz big band, most guys are reading notes. So there's a big difference. It's like, let's say you talk about Coltrane. So you see how Coltrane, you know, was just improvising all the time in his instrument. That's kind of like, you know, how I look at it as a total picture. I look at it like, you know, when you play any kind of music, pretty much, if you're just playing off a feel and the theme, it sort of is kind of a jazz approach, like an improvised jazz approach, which Charlie Parker, you know, made famous in the 40s. See what I'm saying?
Well, I guess to layer on that, my theory is that because you guys were on the bandstand 6-7 nights a week, you not only became comfortable in your learning your technical chops, but you also had and you woodshed it obviously, but you got a chance to get things out of your system on the bandstand, and you were able to develop your own individual sound. Your self-consciousness fell away, and therefore you could just swing off a theme. If you don't have that kind of ability to get up on the bandstand, because there's no venues anymore, Larry, so you don't.
Yeah, no, I know that's the difference today. Now everything is more automatic. It seems like everything is, you know, coming out of schools, guys learn out of school. I mean, even a lot of these bass players that play real technical today, you know, like Victor Wooten and people like that. And now Jocko, of course, Jocko was an exception. I think Jocko actually took the bass to some place that no one's ever taken it. But then after that, everybody, you know, was really on that bandwagon and try to use that technique. He used the technique, but he also had the music in his head. A lot of those guys didn't have that music from playing gigs.
Right,
exactly.
right. You're nailing it. This is why Larry Taylor. I mean, I'll tell you, that you are like I have been looking for you for years, because I'm telling you, man. For young, but I mean, let's put this into the real time. For anyone that you mentor or you come across, and you see them just playing notes and they're hyped, they're not even breathing because they're trying to just play all over and show off their chops. How do you get cats in your way of mentoring? How do you get them to slow down and also understand that the space within the notes is actually music as well?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's a tough thing to relay to people. You know,
right.
I mean, I've had I've talked to other bass players, you know, that are like I just talked to Jimmy Halsip. You know Jimmy Halsip? You know who he is?
I don't know that name.
Yeah, he played bass with the for years with a band called the Yellow Jackets.
Oh, sure, okay.
So he was influenced a lot by Jocko. But if you go hear him play, he still has a sense because he's played a lot of gigs, you know, in that format we're talking about, like clubs all the time. But I was talking to him one night about just different lines and, you know, learning the lines up just so you have it a thing in your head about certain types of songs. Like, say, we were talking about this one called Freedom Jazz Dance, learning it on the bass as versus, and then try to improvise in the tune, which was actually a modal tune. And he said it's very difficult. And I respect this guy because this guy actually was a player that, you know, grew up in the 70s playing, you know, gigs. So we were talking about that, but I've talked to younger guys, and if you get younger guys today that play blues, they don't really know a lot about the structure. They sort of play at it, but they don't have the expertise and the chops to do certain things, like on the upright, like in a blues sense, like say the slap technique. Say for that's one. then there's like just the lines, the bass lines. I mean, they're based off of real simple things, and it's hard sometimes to relay that, how simple it really is, and they overplay mostly.
Okay, but is that a can you attribute that just to the fact that they're not able to work on that in a live setting, or just get comfortable doing it for weeks?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good. I think that's a good way of looking at it, because they didn't really get a chance to experience that interplay as much as, say, the younger players back from the 60s and the 70s and the 50s. The 80s and 90s, and now, it's technique, man. It's a lot of technique.
Right, and
technique's more important than, say, it's just a thing. Just a simple bass line can also be technique, but it also has a foundation of something that a lot of that other stuff don't have, because they go too far away from the real groove.
Speaking of the real groove, we have a game on this program called Name That Tune. I'm going to play you this tune right now. It's been an inspiration to me and my family, and we'll come back and break it down, okay?
You're going to play me a tune and ask me what it is?
Yeah, you just listen and settle in.
Okay.
All right.
I walk the streets and sing the blues every day. Try to blow my harmonica to the best of my ability. But I'll go to bed with the blues and I'll wake up with the blues. And in the morning when I get up and put on my shoes, I still have the blues. Blues just hangs around me all the time, baby. I'm gonna try to blow this harmonica a little bit on this one.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you by the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona, the Stereo Hospital, the Circle Tree Ranch, and Abbott Taylor Jewelers. And we appreciate them and their support. All right, Mr. Taylor, what do you got for us, brother?
Well, I know it's a harmonica player, but I'm not sure who that is, to be honest with you.
Okay, that was Devil's Harmonica, Shaky Jake Harris. From
No, I don't know that.
That's
but, I can tell you something about it.
Well, hold on. You know that you play bass. You play bass on that.
I did?
Larry, I'm not playing random tunes for you. Okay, you're on bass.
I don't know what the fuck. I don't know. I don't remember even playing that.
Okay, dude. Let me tell you something, Larry. That's how much you know. People can't quantify music. It's unquantifiable. Your bass playing on that.
Yeah. No. So what? So wait a minute. So wait. Now, what's the guy's name again?
Shaky Jake Harris was a black.
Oh, Shaky Jake. Oh,
Shaky
yeah.
Jake. John. It was a Mayhall was on piano. Larry Taylor. I mean, you just. I mean, I love doing this for the guys because you're not the first one that I've played a tune for, and you probably haven't even heard it since the session. I found this.
Well, I haven't. No.
I found it on Polydor Records. I listen to it every day. It is the most.
Was that John Mayall playing piano?
You got it. That's right. Mayall was on piano.
Yeah. I remember the session. And who was playing guitar? Do you remember?
I'll get it to you. I know Ron Selico was on drums.
Oh, Ron. Yeah. That was. You know who he was, right?
I really want to know who. I don't know. Is he still around?
He played.
Yeah.
He was one of James Brown's drummers.
Okay, because I've interviewed Stubblefield and Jabo, but I never knew Selico was a drummer for James.
Yeah, he was one of them. I mean, he had a lot of different drummers through different eras. When Ron played with him for I don't know how long, but I did play with him for a while. Now maybe a couple months, 2, 3, 4 months, something like that. I'm not really sure, but yeah, he was one of James Brown's drummers. And it's actually there's a discography someplace, I can't remember where it is, but it talks about all the James Brown players, including want to hear a real. I don't know if this is interesting to you or not, but this is some information you'll never find. There's a guitar player named shucks, man, what the heck's his name? Jimmy Nolan. You've heard the name before?
I have not.
So Jimmy Nolan was a guitarist out of the late 40s, early 50s, and he played blues. It's the most underrated, greatest guitarist, one of the greatest blues guitar players that I've ever heard. And
right.
Influenced me on guitar, because I play guitar, and influenced me on guitar. And he originally he played with a band called the Joe Houston Band, which was a 50s honker shouter saxophone player. Right?
Right.
This is a guitar player. And then he made his own records. And then he went on later on and he played with Johnny Otis. You know who Johnny Otis was?
Absolutely. Shoogie's father.
Yeah, so Johnny Otis made a record called Willie and the Hand John. Did you ever hear the record?
I have not heard that. No, I know this tune, but I never heard the record.
Yeah, well, that's Jimmy Nolan. And then later on, when Jimmy Nolan got a little older, he was one of the guitar players on James Brown's records.
Yeah, I'm looking this cat up. He passed away in '83. He was known for his distinctive chicken scratch lead guitar playing in James Brown's band.
Well, that was one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess you're also breaking history here. I love creating new history with the cats, but you're telling me that you.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on the internet that they don't have. They never knew any about this.
Oh no! But I'm saying, the Jake Feinberg Show I've become relentless with creating new history through my guests. But I didn't know you played electric guitar. Did you play that on sessions too?
Oh, I played on a couple of Ken Heat songs, but no, I actually just playing a lot of guitar now. We're on the road doing things, and I'm playing a lot of different styles of guitar. I play just all kinds of styles. I play jazz, blues. I play a little country. I can play just about anything.
Oh, I know you can, because you just wait till I drop another piece of information that nobody knows about Larry Taylor. Okay. So we're cooking. I want to go back to the conversation we were having before, which was you talked about the slap technique and these other things that the younger cats, they get near it, but they can't do it. Another component to it was, we'll take Shaky Jake Harris. That dude was a black blues singer with a harmonica. He's talking about the messages in the song are the blues. You don't have work, your wife's getting on you. How much of it was authenticity? Because it's very hard to play blues if you're growing up in suburbia. Can you talk about some of the titans that you played under that inspired you to, because they were channeling their lives?
Well, most of what inspired me was records. Was listening to records. That's where I got my whole thing from. Was listening to records in the '50s, and that's pretty much what got me interested. And of course, I didn't play. I just played a few chords on the guitar, and even back in the beginning, I didn't play anything. I used to play a broomstick, you know. It's true.
I believe it. I believe it.
And pretend I was playing at my friends. I had friends. We would hang out, listen to records, and I used to pretend that I was playing the guitar, and I never played it before. So anyway, that was then, and then later on, I just kept listening and buying these records, and eventually picked up on, the styles of music that are more kind of, I guess you would say that the music that I really listened to was more of underground than they were like pop. Although there was, on the 50s, there was some really good records on the radio. You know, say for instance, what comes to mind is Seventh Son by Mose Allison.
Absolutely.
That was a big hit record. But now there's a jazz feel and a jazz sound with a vocal that has a jazz sound, but it still has a commerciality. And it was still something, but some of the records they played on the radio back in those days were really good records. People picked up on it. See, that's what I'm saying, because it was so good. So, just giving you that kind of...
Oh, no, this is... So, can you... I was going to ask you, you grew up in New York, though, is that right?
Yeah, but I didn't play any music in New York. I came out to California when I was 9 years old, so I hadn't done anything in New York.
I like the fact that we also share something in common. Our parents are both... my dad is Jewish. My mom is Catholic. I noticed that you come from the same...
That's the same.
Same. So, I love it. So, but did you... So, here's the question for Larry Taylor. Did you play on the Chitlin circuit? And who gave you... Did you play any of the black nightclubs, Memory Lane, or any of these gut bucket places in Los Angeles? Did you ever back up any of the authentic blues cats?
But mostly what I did was play little small local clubs. They weren't black clubs. They were just like little bars, and with different configurations and different bands. They weren't really bands. They were kind of like this drummer and this singer and this guitar player, and then this drummer and this drummer that sang and played drums, and then eventually it kind of you got it going with maybe like a regular trio. I was always in the trio instrumental music when I first really started playing. Had a place on Sunset Boulevard called the Sea Witch.
I love it.
That would have been about the original one. I don't think you've ever heard this information. The original time when I first played bass that's when I first played the bass. And how that came to be is there was this place on Sunset called the Sea Witch, and they had you could go there and you could stand outside, and they had this little patio thing in the front. You could hear the music, and that was one thing. But then they had on the radio, they say, if you come up here and we got this mannequin guy that acts like a mannequin, if you can make him laugh, we'll pay you $25 if you can make him flinch. So we went up there, me and this friend of mine, Elliot Ingberg, who's a musician that I played with back in the day there, and that's when I was introduced to the Sea Witch. So I happened to go in there one night, and this was about 1958 or 59, and I happened to go in there one night just to check the place out because I was this of age to be able to go in there. You could drink. You couldn't drink, but you had food, so you could get in. So I went in there and I saw this bass on this amp leaning on the stage with this guy with long hair from Oklahoma singing, and a drummer, a midget drummer, standing on a stool playing the drums, playing the shit out of it.
Oh, this is awesome. This is unbelievable.
So I saw this bass, and then when the guy came off, I asked him, I said, hey, do you mind if I go and just grab that bass and play? I'm a guitar player, but
yeah.
It looks like you don't have a bass player tonight. So he said, yeah, go ahead. So that was it. That was the beginning.
And so it was a midget drummer, you on upright, and then it was a guitarist? Or?
No upright, electric bass.
Electric bass. And then what was the third instrument? Guitar. So you guys had a trio, and would you say that you guys were coming out of the Duke Ellington School of Music in the sense that you were playing no genre? I mean, were you playing, because it was the height of West Coast bop at that point, so I know you were...
No, we were playing straight strict early rock and roll rockabilly.
I dig. Strict early rockabilly at the Sea Witch for Larry Taylor. But then...
Yeah, that was, that was the beginning, and it was like well, you could call it rockabilly, but it was rock and roll. The guy's name was Wesley Reynolds, and he was from Oklahoma City, and that's the guy that I played with. That was him, and I actually went to Oklahoma and with him and did some gigs. Took off from home without a bass because I told my mother, I'm going away. I'm going to go with this guy playing in Oklahoma, and they hid my bass. So I didn't have a bass because they didn't want me to go, but I still went. We drove all the way to Oklahoma City. I'll never forget it, with a 1956 Pontiac on a rake. You know what a rake is on a car?
No.
They lower the front all the way down and they lift up the rear. So back in the 50s, they had this style of cars that were on rakes, and he had a car that was on a rake, and so all it was just a jumpy ride all the way, like boom, 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 all the fucking way.
How did the bass didn't break on the way?
I didn't have a bass.
Oh, so they hit the bass. Okay, it was an electric. I keep thinking it was an upright. So it was but
yeah, no.
So you just left. You left.
Yeah.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
Yeah. So we got back to Oklahoma, and I played a few gigs, and then I ended up coming back, and I hitchhiked back. I did a lot of hitchhiking back in the day.
Oh, sure. One guy who's in my soul very deeply is Paul Lagos, and I wanted you to talk to the audience. He gets a lot of flack because he was he could be very difficult. From what I've been chronicling him a lot on my show, but he was a brilliant player. Still haven't totally gotten my ears around his playing sometimes. But I want to talk about how you guys approached music as a rhythm section and how you expanded the language of music that you played together.
You talking about with Paul?
Absolutely, Paul, yeah.
Well, with Paul, see, this is the thing about Paul was really a heavy jazz drummer fan. And he was friends of Alvin, Coltrane's drummer, and he was friends with a lot of people from the 40s and the late 40s, early 50s, older guys, black musicians. And he just was really more engulfed in jazz. He wasn't really a rock and roll guy at all. He was more of a hardcore jazz player. And so, I took interest in jazz, and I just used to go to this house. He had these jam sessions over there, and I used to just go there just to listen. And I played a little bass at the time, but as far as Paul goes, as far as me playing with him, I didn't really play on that many things with him, only till a few things with Sugarcane, and then I don't remember all. Oh yeah, I think I did a part of a record with Richard Green. You know who Richard Green was?
No. Do you just hold your horses there, brother? We're gonna get to that because I'm gonna.
Okay.
This is all about enlightening people to Larry Taylor because people will compartmentalize and just say John Mayall and by the way, you also collaborated with Lagos on Baby Batter, which is another one of my favorite records.
Yeah, well, that's with Harvey's records. Yeah,
exactly.
Because Harvey wanted to have a little bit more of that R&B-ish jazz feel behind his stuff and not so much straight rock and roll. And Paul was really good at that too, but he was really hardcore jazz. He really was, and he was great. He was really good at it.
Did you guys sync up? Yeah, go ahead.
He just really had a really unique way of playing drums. He was totally all by himself, as far as I can remember. And
I think additionally, he really was proud of that too, right? It seems to me that your generation.
Yeah. He was. He was really into it, and he was sort of frowned on commerciality, and he sort of frowned on it. But he did play on a few Liberty records. I think he played drums on one of Jackie DeShannon's records. I can't think of the name.
Oh, I need to get the Lagos. What about just did he play on any jazz sessions? I know he was friends with those cats, but Lagos to me. Oh no, he was in a band called Skip told me what it was. Kaleidoscope.
Well, Pure Food.
No, Kaleidoscope.
Oh, Kaleidoscope. Yeah, they were like an avant-garde, odd time, odd measure, kind of like Eastern music. that you'd call a more, Mid-Eastern, more European, folk, that kind of stuff.
Going back for a minute, can you paint the picture for me and my own peace of mind about the Shaky Jake session? Because I'm going to send you, I want to send you this record. It is the funkiest record. And then when I saw that you were playing on it, it really, it gets me off every time, man. Can you paint me a picture of that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think I have a copy of that someplace.
Well, you better listen to it because it's hot, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's funny about that, to be honest with you. I wasn't, I was tuned into blues at that particular time, but then I was kind of coming out of the Can Heat, more of a garage bandy.
Absolutely.
And I always call Can Heat as kind of a garage bandy thing, but you had guys that had played a lot of clubs like Henry, but Bob never did, and Alan never did. It was just me and Henry, and then the original drummer, Frank Cook, he was sort of a jazzer drummer too, but he didn't really play a lot of gigs like me and Henry did. See, me and Henry played a lot of gigs with a lot of different people over, before that all. And then after I came out of that, then I went with John Mayall, and I hadn't really tuned into the more older style blues until later, till the 70s.
That record was in 72 or 70. That was 1970.
That was like a generic blues feel.
Exactly.
I call
it. But you made it. But it wasn't boring though. It was swinging.
Well,
it was so swinging.
It just see that thing about sometimes those kind of records like that, they just sort of kind of happen, and that's what you get that character of that. You don't. If you're thinking too much about things, and then and you know a little bit about it, sometimes that's harder to pull off.
Oh, and we are a much more internal thinking society today than we were when you were coming up. In my mind, are there other? I mean,
right.
You have a discography here. I wanted to ask you also about. I found this record in a thrift store. This 1967. I look at it, and Larry Taylor on upright bass, Test Patterns, Voice and Heart. Does that ring a bell?
What's the song? What's the song called?
The name of the album is called Test Patterns, and the leaders were Voice and Heart.
I didn't play upright bass on that. I played electric.
Electric. Okay, so you played on that album.
Yeah.
Who are those cats? I don't even know who they.
That's how I got introduced to the Monkees. You know about that?
No, please break that down.
Okay, well, so here it is. I was working with an artist out of New York in Vegas in 61, 62, and 63. Maybe early 62 to 64 altogether. I worked a circuit in Vegas. And Bobby Hart was a singer. And he came, and this Teddy Randazzo, okay, first of all, it was Teddy Randazzo was the artist. And through the channels with another trio that I played with at the Sea Witch later on, through those channels, Don Costa, the famous arranger that actually did stuff with Sinatra, he loved Jerry's guitar playing. And Jerry's guitar was more like kind of this country, finger-picking style, with kind of Louisiana, guitars from Louisiana. So I was in a trio with them for many years, and that's how I got hooked up. Through that channel, we got the gig with Teddy, and then Bobby Hart came in as a singer. He had three background singers, and he came in as a background singer, and that's how I met him. And then one thing led to another, and then we had a little band, and we went on the road with the Monkees. We played on the Monkee hits. I played on the Monkee hit called "Last Train to Clarksville." Did you ever hear that record?
No, I mean this is outside of my pocket of Larry. Keep going. I love this. Keep going.
Yeah. So the Monkees was. I don't know if you ever watched the Monkees. On TV they have the reruns. There's a thing called the Monkees theme. Well, I'm playing bass on that one. And then I played on almost their whole first album. And that's actually the album that had the biggest sales and all this and that and the other thing. And that's how I got hooked up, was through Teddy Randazzo, through Don Costa, from the Sea Witch to the Monkees. And then after the Monkees, after that was done, I was just kind of drifting around, and that's how I found Canned Heat.
Talking to Larry Taylor here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Part of my show, one of the 4 L's on my show is life, and what I mean by that is overcoming adversity. And I'd like you to talk about a time in your career, if you had one, when you were fighting yourself, or maybe there was a genre that you were struggling with, and how, or people you were struggling with, and then how you overcame it and actually became stronger as a person and as a player.
I'm not sure of the question.
Yeah, that's very good. That's good. All right, so I like to talk to the guys, the guys and girls, the artists, about overcoming adversity. And so I'm asking you about a time in your career where you were facing some adversity. It could be in any form. How you overcame it and how it made you stronger.
I got to think about the adversity.
All right, so think about it, and then I got some more stuff, so you can think about
that. I have to think about the adversity, because I never thought of anything like that.
Well, that's the Jake Feinberg Show. I mean, I'm asking you things you've never thought about before.
I never thought about adversity. At all. I didn't even know what the fucking word meant, man.
Right. Well, no, and in truth, it's like.
But I know what the word means now, but I didn't then, and I didn't even think about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, for instance, like Steve Gadd, the drummer, when I interviewed him, he knew exactly what I was talking about, and he went right to the idea that he was so addicted to drugs that he lost everything, and had to leave New York City, and had to sober up. And it was painful. And when he came back, he had friends in the business. And thankfully, his career and he's still alive and he's still swinging. That was one type of adversity. Ron Tutt, the drummer, I asked him specifically about adversity. And he talked about being humbled when reggae music first came out. He was infatuated with it, but he could not get the rhythms down. And so he really needed to go. He happened to be in a warehouse in Texas. And it was a wholesale record distribution place, and they had all these Heptone records, all these reggae records when they first came into the States. I know you know this. He had to go. He was humbled by that genre of music, so he overcame that and eventually became a great, very accomplished player. Could play all sorts of boogie on reggae. Well, that's not a reggae tune, but harder they come, the harder they fall. So it could, when I say adversity, it's more about fighting yourself in some way, shape, or form, and then ultimately you're still here with both feet on the ground on this earth, and so you've clearly been.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So if you think of something, please chalk it up, because it's always.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that, because it doesn't really register right off.
Well, based on when you hear your bass playing, you sound like a very. It sounds like adversity just drips off of you. It's not a big deal, but.
That's funny.
Okay, but this is where Jake Feinberg Show, after 5 years of woodshedding, promoting concerts, I hosted a concert for Peter Rowan, maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, I know Peter.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, no, I want the whole story, because we're sitting there, we're talking about Old and in the Way, the great bluegrass band, and then we pivot out to this band called Mule Skinner, and David Grisman. I had an opportunity to sit with David in his hotel room in October and did my 3rd hour-long interview with David. Peter and I, he crashed on my couch. We're sitting there in the studio doing this interview 2 years ago before his performance at a church in southern Arizona, and he tells me, and this is right around the time that I started listening to the Devil's Harmonica with Larry Taylor on bass, Shaky Jake album. And he goes, Larry Taylor played on that Mule Skinner album. I said, are you effing kidding me? He said, he goes, Larry Taylor was the bass player in Mule Skinner. I don't have the audio queued up, but he said that, I forget the exact wording, but he said you were too bluesy and funky, and they were looking for more grass, more straight bluegrass. So ultimately, John.
Yeah, right.
All right,
Exactly.
but please, how? Okay, so I was assuming that you'd never worked in New York, but I assumed that maybe you had connected with Rowan when they were doing Earth Opera in New York City. But now I need to know, how did you meet the Mule Skinner Boys? Because I've interviewed all those cats.
Richard Green.
Richard Green, you and Richard. When you meet him at the Ash Grove with Scotty Stoneman?
Yes. Yes.
Please tell me this story, Larry. This is. I mean, I'll be set for life after this.
Well, I was rehearsing with Richard Green on a contemporary record for Warner Brothers. It was kind of a more of a modern approach to sort of like fusion. It was more of an earlier fusion. Paul Lagos played drums. He was playing drums. And we rehearsed at Paul's house for a year.
Oh my God!
We put together all this music, and Richard got a deal with Warner Brothers, and they finally released the record. Well, no, they finally put the record. They mastered all the tapes, got it all ready, and then they scrapped it.
Was it called Richard Green in the Zone?
Yeah, the Richard Green.
I've been looking for that. Tell me you have a copy of that record. I need that record. No,
there's no record.
There isn't, right?
No.
Rowan said there was, though. Rowan said there was a record.
No, I've never seen it.
Oh my God.
Well, there might have been some pressings. But that's about it. I honestly, he may be right. And also, one of the things I can tell you that he told you, I did not play on that record, Mule Skinner. I played with the band live. That's all I ever did.
He said, now, okay, so this is really fascinating. Are you positive? Because he said that a couple of tracks is definitely you on bass.
That's possible. Maybe I did play on a couple of tracks. I don't remember.
So Richard, are you telling me that the Zone was made up of Richard Green, Lagos,
Paul Lagos,
and Larry Taylor?
I'm trying to think who else was there.
Oh my God, this is blowing my.
Mainly us three, and then there was a singer named Richie Martin. You know who Richie Martin was? You know who he is?
No, I don't know who he is.
Well, Richie Martin was the singer that replaced the singer in the what was that pop band's name, man?
I was talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just trying to put this in perspective so you can hear. This guy was just a really good rhythm and blues, had a really strong voice, and so Richard wanted to have this kind of fusion thing with these odd time signatures with this kind of funky sing.
I love this. Oh my!
Huh?
I love you. I mean, tell me were you comfortable in that setting? You talk about Lagos being an odd time jazzer, but you fit in just fine.
I was learning, man. I learned from that stuff. You know, that's something that you play every day. You learn. I learned from everything.
And I guess what I want you to
jazz.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, it's not just playing blues or playing jazz or playing rock and roll. There's so much music, and you can learn something from everything. Now, for instance, you were talking about reggae. I never ever had any idea of how to play that, and I never wanted to.
Right.
It didn't interest me. But some people, you know, everybody's different. Everybody's got, you know, I want to do that. I want to, like this. What was that drummer's name again? You told me about.
Say again.
What was his drummer's name? You told me about that. Went and learned all the.
Oh, Ron Tutt. Ron Tutt.
Oh, Ron Tutt. Oh, wow. Didn't Ron Tutt play with Elvis?
You're darn right he did.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Ron Tutt. I mean, yeah. So, but I think you weren't. It wasn't a natural inclination. You weren't interested in it, so you never sought it out. You never wanted to.
No, I never did. I never. Well, I did a song with Tom Waits. You know who Tom Waits is, right?
Yeah, very well. Yes.
Yeah, so I played on a lot of his records, like 8 or 9.
Oh, I know. It's insane.
And he had this one tune that was sort of reggae feel, and it was me and him and the guitarist. I can't think of what his name is right now. And there wasn't really any drums because he didn't really use drummers. Because he was this kid on drums. He used different forms of percussion, but he never really was like a real drummer guy.
Right.
In the studio, he always did the layers and laid down tracks with 2-3 instruments or 2 instruments, and then added stuff. And what the heck was his name? Well, there was a reggae tune on there, and a feel. I played what I heard. You know, I played what I thought. It wasn't what it was, but I did it. I tried to emulate the feel of what I thought it was, but it wasn't really what it was. See what I'm saying? And that's kind of like how I approach it, man. I approach music myself, to be honest with you, my own way. I don't listen to everybody and try to do what they do. You see, I just do what I do when I do it. It just happens. It's not something, you know, that I sit around thinking about. It's just I go to a session. I'm getting ready to do an album with Leo Costi pretty soon. I mean, you know, I made a record with him once before. You know about that, right?
I mean, it's my favorite. I don't listen to any Cocky except with Lagos and Larry Taylor. That one Mudlark.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to do a record.
Oh my God!
Upright bass and acoustic. That's it.
Are we going to get a chance to see the upright bass with Canned Heat?
No. You know, actually, at one point we did carry it. We did use it, but it's just, you know, the way things are today, trying to travel, and then it's this four-piece. This little four-piece thing we have is like it's interchangeable. We're a bass player. He's a really good bass player and a really good musician. He sings a little and he plays really good bass. So when I'm playing guitar, I got a great bass player behind. Gotta have, you know, man. To any music, if you don't have a good bass player, you can forget it. That's all I can tell you.
Oh, I dig, and
you know,
yeah. Well, no,
if you ain't got a guy that has a sense of what the bass is, and you have a guy out there playing all these fucking notes, and you're trying to play with that, forget it. It doesn't work. You know. Did you? I'm getting emotional.
Well, and listen, because you've made me emotional for 2 years, and you don't even know who I am. So here's the thing.
I'm glad I did.
And I'm half your age. So here's the thing. Tell me about, just before we wrap up part one here, tell me about how you felt in those live bluegrass settings, because you were talking before how you play rock.
I was scared shitless.
But but then put it into your mentality about just not thinking and just playing what you feel, but then also letting your instincts take over and your chops.
Well, yeah. I played my feel, and evidently it didn't gel with what the other players, and they had all these top people. You know, Clarence White. You've heard of Clarence White?
Yeah, the Kentucky Colonels. This is more in my pocket. Yeah.
Roland White, and what's his name? Rowan singing, and Richard playing violin, and then Bill Keith on banjo. I mean, these are all guys that were, you know. And here I am because I'm with Richard. So Richard figures, well, let me get, play some bluegrass, and get you the gig with the upright bass.
Can you just tell?
I was playing upright bass at the time. That was kind of like in the beginning when I was first playing upright, but Richard thought, well, if you play upright, why don't you just come in here and play with us? And we got these gigs at the Ash Grove, and then I think I might have did recording on a couple of songs. I don't remember.
Oh, I know you. I got the audio. I'm going to send you the whole interview, the Rowan interview, because he talks about you, and it blew my mind. But I think it's like,
wow.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. I mean, you have we've just begun to, but I wanted you before we go, you talked about, because I think, like, Richard played, and David Grisman, Rowan, they had already played. I mean, when I interviewed
Richard, David Grisman was also in there.
Of course. No, I mean, we're talking about musical titans, but I know what Richard.
That's what I'm talking
about.
But
here's the thing. Here's the thing. Richard Green, they weren't going to break any new ground bringing in, some guy who could play bluegrass bass. I know he believed that by bringing in you, more rugged, hard-edged blues bass, that it would be
I kind of think that's what Richard thought.
I know that's what they thought. I know it because I've documented this stuff.
But I don't know about the rest of the guys. I don't know what they thought. But
well,
all I know is they said my time wasn't right.
No, and I'm going to send you this audio because Peter said you were too bluesy, not enough straight grass. Vassar wanted.
Yeah, I didn't play straight. I played what I heard right there on the spot. I tried playing that kind of music. What's funny is my first music I was introduced to was in Tennessee when I lived in Tennessee when I was a kid, and then I actually ended up going back there when I was about 12. My brother lived there, and that's the kind of music he was playing. He was in a bluegrass group, and he also was in a rock and roll rockabilly band at that time in the 50s. And my first introduction to music when I was a kid, like 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years old, that's the music that's the kind of music you heard around that area. It was in East Tennessee. So I was real interested in bluegrass music, but I never really was around the environment, and so not when I played music. So I never really did that. So I just kind of evolved into playing blues because I was a jazz fan and blues fan. So, there you go.
Well, I have a favor to ask you. When you come to town, I'm going to go to the show, but it's a harried evening, and we may or may not connect. Can I get you into the studio Saturday morning Saturday for part 2 live? I want to hang. I'll pick you up at the hotel, and we'll hang for part 2. We got a lot more to do, but this time we can do it in person.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could say yes right now. My wife's coming with me, so we wanted to kind of like spend a little time doing some little, putzing around there.
I'm just saying, like, you can totally do. I don't want to interrupt your day. I just want to say that you and your wife can come to the studio too. But I want to. Listen, It's 10 days before my 38th birthday. Skip told me he doubted I'd get more than 10 minutes out of you. We've already been cooking for an hour. So.
Well, because you have interesting things to talk about. That's the issue.
Exactly. No, and I like to. So anyway, mull on it for a minute, and I'd love to do. I mean, we'll do part 2 anyway. But I'd love to meet you. I'd love to connect with you in person, and if you're up for it on that Saturday, you want to come in for a half.
Yeah, I'm up for it. Let's see. Let's just play it by ear and see. Now you're talking about Saturday. You talking about the day we get there?
So we're talking about. You're playing on Friday the 4th, and
right.
Then my live worldwide show is on Saturday from noon to 2. I have Ndugu Chancellor in the second hour, and I want to have you.
Wait a minute. What date is that?
That's the 5th, Saturday the 5th.
Yeah, we're going to Phoenix.
You're playing a gig in Phoenix?
Yeah, we're doing the festival there.
Oh, that's awesome. When are you coming in, by the way?
We're coming in on the 3rd.
All right. Well, listen. Then let's figure out a way to meet up. Maybe we can just do part 2 in person. Somewhere before, and then obviously you're going to be out of here on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I think what's going to happen is that we'll have to get up pretty early on the morning of the 5th and drive to Phoenix.
Absolutely. So maybe on the 3rd before the or I don't know.
So on the 3rd we get in. I don't know what time the flight is. I think we get in sometime in the afternoon, and then that's when me and my wife wanted to. Oh yeah, then Skip's having a party.
Yeah, well maybe I want to come over to the party. We'll either way. I want to meet you, Larry, because I know this.
Oh yeah, well come on over. Come there, and maybe we can do a little bit of talking there if you have a recorder to bring.
I totally have a recorder, and to me, I mean, what you don't really understand because you're not really into new media is that. I've become a prolific disseminator of stories through all the musicians, all the guys I've interviewed, and
I bet you.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Like it's feeding me. I think my daughters,
really?
My wife, kind of look askance at me sometimes, but it's because 2 years ago this dream started, and now my dream is complete to talk to you, man.
Wow.
And so
Great, man.
Yeah, man. So I'll see you at Skip's house, and we'll hang for a minute.
Yeah, that's probably good, and then we'll go from there. Maybe we can do something earlier the next day.
Well, yeah, no, I'm gonna come to the show. I just don't want to, I want to stay out of your hair. But ultimately,
yeah.
I chronicle you guys, your brotherhood, because in my mind, if the continuation of the language of music is going to continue, I believe it's been stunted. The only way it's going to continue is because of cats like you and Fido. And all the other ridiculous cats that I've interviewed, because you guys were masters of all trades, even though you probably don't.
Do you know about the little short window in there with Jerry Lee Lewis? You know about that one?
Oh, let's get to that in part 2.
Okay, well, yeah, there's a little.
Oh no, we
short
we
little
just
window
scratched.
in
Listen,
there.
I just was throwing all. I threw my best stuff at you today, and
Yeah, that was good. You did some good things. And that kind of evolved. Good, no, that was good. You did some good. I mean, there's a real story here with me for sure.
Well,
I can tell
you better believe. Listen, man.
Everybody's going, why don't you do a book and why don't you do all this shit? I mean, I don't know how to do that stuff. I just play music, man. That's what I do. You know? And then you got to get a guy that's a writer, and you got to get a publisher, and you know, I mean, Cito did a book. I mean, whatever, you know.
Larry,
He had somebody to write with him. He had some people from the LA Times that actually took interest and helped him put it together, you know. But I could never do it on my own if I ever did.
Well, we just started this first step here, man, and what an honor to connect with you. Thank you to Skip Taylor for connecting us, and this is going to run. I'll send you some information when this is going to run worldwide. The 27th.
Are you gonna edit it?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm going to send you I'm going to send you a complete. Yeah, I got to take out some of the F-bombs, but
Say that again?
I got to take out some. I got to take out some of the curse words. But yeah, other than that, we're.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll send you a full audio file tonight via email, and if there's anything you want me to take out, you let me know. We'll just stay in touch, man.
Yes. Okay. Do you have my email?
I have sent you like 5 emails and gotten no response.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, you got my email. Yeah, I never got back to you, but I knew that it was coming. I didn't know when.
Yeah, because you thought this was just going to be a fluff interview. All right, so now you can respond.
No, I mean, yeah, I'll tell you what. I think all interviews usually are that. That's all I can tell you, because I don't like them.
How did this one go?
Oh, this one's one of the best ones I've ever done.
My job is done. All right, LT, I'll talk.
Because you had facts and information, man. These people, you know, although you started off with this New York thing, I thought, wait, man. But that's the only one, and that's really the only thing that I read off the bat. But everything else was really right on it.
Yeah, and you know what, man? Like you know, in a song, you play one wrong note, but it's a gateway to further creation. So you know, everyone flips a note.
The more wrong notes, and that's right. That's right. You know, the mistakes is where you learn from. You can play. You know, it's like any kind of medium, like photography. You know, you go shoot a bunch of pictures, and you get 2 or 3 good ones, and every now and then you hit something like, wow, what's that? That's
exactly.
Something else you never even did. So it's all the same. And music's like that too. It's funny how that is. It just sometimes things just happen. You know, I'm not real keen on everything I've done, but I like some of the stuff I've done.
All right, LT. We'll make sure you throw on that Shaky Jake record today, all right? Because that thing burns.
Okay, well, just remember this one thing, and
Sure.
I'll tell you one more thing before I go. My outlook on music is in the wind, man. I play it, it's gone in the wind. I don't like to listen to myself. I just like to do it, create it on the spot, and then next here something else comes along and you do that then. See what I'm saying? I don't know if that means anything.
No, actually, that's exactly my mantra every time I get behind the mic on the radio. Just swing, and I don't listen. I mean, I'll go back and transcribe stories that you guys talk about, but I don't like to necessarily listen to how I set the stuff up, and I cringe sometimes. So I'm the same way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the same thing.
That's right,
Same
exactly.
thing. No difference. Anyway, listen, I'll let you go. I got to go, and it was really good. It was great. Now, your name is what again, Ron?
My name is Jake Feinberg.
Oh, Jake?
Jake, yes. Jake Feinberg.
J-A-K-E?
J-A-K-E, Feinberg, Jewish father.
Okay, Jake, I'm sorry, man. Some reason not know. Okay, I'll remember you now, because now I find it takes me a minute, man. I have to, you know, I got.
Oh, it's okay. No, just respond. No, stay in touch via email. I want, and then we'll figure out a way to keep this thing going, because there is a story there.
Yeah, well, you know, you're going to be at Skips, right?
I'm hoping to get over there. I mean, we'll coordinate something. We'll figure it out. I want to make it so that
Okay, so you just find me and we'll figure it out.
All right, brother, man.
Okay, take care, man.
Be good, T. Good to hear you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.